Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and what I wanted to do today was another episode of the Inbox, but this one's a little bit different because in this episode I'm actually answering questions that were submitted by the patrons. Now, speaking of Patreon, and I'm not going to talk about it a whole lot, but I wanted to let you guys know that the next goal that's actually we're working towards achieving is going to be a live streaming goal, where I'll be doing a live stream at least once per month once we actually hit the next goal. So that's what's coming up next in Patreon, but in the meantime, let's go ahead and jump into our first question from Chris Drasin. Saying, with the AC flight training portion being wonky as in crashing a lot while trying to use it, what is the best alternative to it? He's got a T-Flight HOTUS and HOTUS 4 and is trying to learn all the stick and keyboard controls, buttons, etc. for game flight controls. Now, for me, when I got my HOTUS set up, my X52 Pro, I wanted to really get into a game and try it out. So the first one that came to mind for me was War Thunder. So I ended up downloading War Thunder and playing War Thunder and having a lot of fun with War Thunder. But it's important to know that playing other games isn't necessarily going to translate into Star Citizen super effectively. So with that in mind, I think if you're just looking to get control or kind of figure out how these controls are going to respond and feel a little bit different to you, then I think there's value in trying other games. Ultimately, what I would probably do if I were in your situation would be to just boot up Free Flight. It's going to be a situation where you can control things. You don't have other people around. You can stop. You can pull up the controls. What I would probably do is, outside of just going into Free Flight, I would probably download and print off what the current at least I would wait until 2.4 or until you get into 2.4 because a lot of the controls have actually changed. But I would actually print off what the controls are, get familiar with what you're doing, and then just fly around. Fly around a landing pad, fly around the terraforming beam, fly through the asteroid field, treat an asteroid as an enemy and kind of try strafing around it. And then make adjustments to your key bindings accordingly so you can actually get confident with it. Ultimately, the piece of advice whenever it comes to controls from me is always going to be this: practice, practice, practice. And even though the flight training that's in place isn't working, there's other ways to accomplish that. And I think Free Flight's going to be your best place. Start in private, then work your way up to a public free flight where you can then maybe communicate and work with others to really kind of figure out what you're trying to accomplish. And then bounce ideas off of them, if nothing else. Next one's up from Bjorn saying, thanks for all the great content you provide. You are very welcome. Is there any information on how scanning short and medium range is going to work? When I fly around in 2.3, it feels pretty immersion breaking that my ship is unable to scan the asteroids in front of me. Basic information like distance to target, object, vector, velocity, mass, and so on should be readily available in a spaceship. I totally agree. I think we're going to see some of those aspects actually implemented into the game. If you're talking about flying up and not picking up an asteroid and seeing what their vector and velocity are, I think that's something that you probably are going to want to see. The problem is what they've always talked about in this game is going to be gameplay over realism. So while a real spaceship may have some very bland or bored printout that's actually telling you what that velocity is and how it's going to impact your situation, that would be really hard and kind of boring to see in the cockpit of your ship. And if you put it on the HUD, especially if it's a combat ship, you're going to be crazy cluttered. You're going to have a really hard time seeing all that. What I would like is probably some sort of focused or augmented type of scanning ability where you can pinpoint and say, I want to know what this piece of debris is doing, or what this asteroid is doing, or I want to know what this thing that might be a ship is doing. That type of focused scanning and actually being able to pinpoint and get different information that you want, I think that's where you get the information that you're requesting, along with kind of that gameplay, where it's not really breaking that immersion, at least in my mind. I think you should have to pinpoint it, but it shouldn't automatically be there. You also say in the same category, will there be a directional scanner referring to Eve where I can detect ships in the vicinity? It seems highly unlikely that my futuristic spaceship will only be able to detect non-stealth ships a few kilometers away. Yes, there will be directional scanners, and we start to see some of that on ships like the Herald, or a really good example would be a ship like the Sentinel, where it's actually a turret that can actually focus its direction of scanning. I would expect what you're going to get is probably faster results, longer range results, better, more detailed results. But that type of thing is going to happen, and we've heard a little bit about that, especially out of like the Hornet Tracker being able to do that sort of thing. So it's absolutely something that's going to be in place. It's just not implemented into the design that we currently have today. Next question is from Drew Cipher saying, what's my thoughts on what's going to be like a day-to-day basis for exploration, or what you're going to be doing on a day-to-day if you're interested in exploration. He kind of goes into a little bit more detail saying that, things like finding a new star system, mapping a jump point, exploring long-lost alien ships, and oh my god, there's an alien on board that's trying to kill us. Those are going to be pretty rare. At least that's the direction that CIG's kind of provided. I think it's probably best to say that, yes, those are going to be somewhat rare. But the reason I say that is because then you can kind of use that to help temper your expectations about what you're going to get. I think you're going to be able to set your tone and direction. If you're, things like finding a new star system, CIG says that's going to be rare. And it probably has to be pretty rare. But, and I should say a big but, find the steps that lead up to you being able to find that star system are going to be immense. You probably need to do long range travel. You need to do the scanning to find it. Sure, there's going to be a couple people that just happen to stumble into a new star system and they're going to have some level of in-game infamy. But the vast majority of people that are going to find the cool shit are going to be the ones that are spending the time trying to find it. So, mapping a jump point, doing the scanning, spending the time. There's going to be downtime associated with exploration, but though that downtime where you're not really accomplishing a whole lot is what's leading to the epic discoveries that you can find at some point. Outside of that, I do think that there's going to be additional things that you can do in an exploration sense that are not directly tied to those groundbreaking, paradigm-shattering type expectations. Things like using an exploration vessel to find a better trade route, or using an exploration vessel to find an asteroid field, or whatever it may be. You can use your exploration vehicle to explore and find new things, but also try and use it to make revenue on the side that's not going to be directly tied to that massive, kind of shift. Okay, so Kyle Lewis says, what's your thought on languages? I'm thinking different races would undoubtedly have different oral and written languages. How do you think that aspect's going to play into the game? Well, we know that they are going to have additional and different languages. That's something that they're doing. They've hired a linguist to actually create these different languages, and technically they're going to be things that we can learn. Now, I don't know about you. I'm not going to spend the time to learn these other languages except for maybe a few very, important words. Like in Spanish, you may learn how to say bathroom. Maybe in space you learn how to say fuel or I'm friendly. Like those types of things are probably important. So outside of that, I think how that's going to interact in game, there's probably going to be some sort of like communication array on your ship that helps to kind of translate what alien races are saying. Maybe if you don't have your Moby glass on, you're not able to understand the person that you're talking to across from the table, on a planetside bar. There's going to be different things, and I think there's going to probably be benefits to actually learning certain words and languages and being able to communicate better in the game. Ultimately, though, there's no way they can really make it too big of a gameplay decision to not know these other languages. So I think it's going to be prevalent. I think you're going to probably learn to identify what these other languages look like without actually being able to read them. And that's probably what you're going to want to see. So if you see some big unknown ship go blaring by, but you notice that the label or the language that's on the side of the ship is actually like a Xi'an language, then all of a sudden it's a little bit less frightening and okay, we're kind of buddy-buddy with the Xi'an. We're probably okay there. Catflap says, multiple ship packages. When I bought a few of these years ago, I thought we were going to get multiple characters. From what you've said with your Blackblood character, this isn't the case, though. I did, however, read somewhere that multiple packages will allow us the possibility to make our own personal NPC that we can use in our ships, and I'm gathering for free. So, yes, and I think it's important to say that I don't know specifically and exactly how everything is going to be tied together. Things like the reputation system need to come into play, and that's the primary reason I created a secondary account for Blackblood, which is my pirate character. I don't know that. So here's the deal. You've got your RSI account, and then you've got your handle. Well, my STLYoungblood handle is different from that. So basically what I'm saying is I don't know if everything that's on my RSI account is going to stay independent of each other. So, it's for me, it was safer to say that I don't want to be having my piracy actually impact my primary character and my organization. So I made them separate to be safe. I think you're probably going to see them be two totally different people that are going to have two totally different reputations that aren't going to really be impacting each other unless maybe good guy hires on bad guy. But you are correct. Technically, you are able to take those additional packages and turn them into NPCs that you can then use to crew your ship, and that you're not really having to pay. Now, they're also going to implement the ability to actually purchase NPCs that you can use for your account. It's almost like buying a package without the ship, if you will. So we need to kind of see what's going to happen with that, but that's been mentioned by CIG a few times. So yeah, that's kind of there. Yeah, and then the other thing you mentioned in here was based on how many packages you get, that the same amount of starting hangars in different locations, i.e. if you have 4 packages, you can choose from 4 different hangar locations in the universe. Sorry if that's a little bit confusing. Don't worry, I understand what you're saying. Hangars are the one they haven't really talked about to this point. I'm thinking what we'll probably see is that you would have the ability to, hell, you know what? I don't know. I don't know what the answer to this one's going to be. I could totally see it going either way. I could see it being, you know what, you paid for all the packages, so you get 4 different hangar locations. Or I could see it being, you can have 4 different hangar locations, but you're going to be paying for 3 of them. But you don't have to pay the initial purchase cost or something to that effect. So I don't know what their plan is. I think there's going to be limited locations where we're actually to be able to kind of set down and call home. So I'm not holding my breath for each package being able to have a separate hangar spread out everywhere, even though that seems like the logical approach that they should take. So as soon as I get any information on that, I'll be happy to share it with you, because it's a little bit vague for me. Richard is asking if there is a clear mission or resource for missions. I know there are some out there, but I've not done them, and I'm having a hard time finding a good resource that explains what the missions are and provides some guidance on running them. I tried on Moby, but it was confusing. I haven't to this point seen anybody that's actually done a real good walkthrough on the mission system, so I can kind of go through and do one. Now, I did a very quick getting started in like what to do in 2.3 type of video. Hopefully that answers some of those questions. But in the meantime, I can try and put together something on like how you actually accomplish the missions. Ultimately, and I'll turn this over to the audience. If you guys want to help Richard out, please go ahead and kind of put through, how you're doing these missions in the comments for him. I think that's probably the best bet, but I'll take a look at what other people can provide to you, and then I will go ahead and follow up with a video if necessary. And the last question would be, maybe this has already been answered in a previous 10 for the chairman or even by myself, but figured he would ask anyways. Redbat's asking, since some of us would spend most of our time working or dealing with real life stuff rather than having a lot of free time to spend in game, do you think there's going to be passive areas of gameplay that are going to allow you to make a fortune in the world of Star Citizen? So he's talking about things like high level commodities traders, ship leasing, real estate, that sort of thing. Professions where you're able to get returns over time rather than that big pirate raid or mining trip. So yes, there's probably going to be things that are more productive than others. That being said, it's going to be very hard for you to compete with somebody that spends a massive amount of time in game. That's part of the reason why I've purchased as many ships as I have to this point, just knowing that I'm not going to be able to spend the time trying to earn those later on in game. That being said, there are probably going to be things that are going to pay out better than others, probably things that are more dangerous. So for example, if you're interested in trading, okay, well, trading within the core systems probably isn't going to pay as much as trading within the outer, more dangerous systems. Or for example, like Elite Dangerous, there's the rares circuit where you have to go a long distance, but you take things that are considered rare items and sell them, that you pay for really cheap, but you sell them for really expensive because it's halfway across the galaxy. Those sorts of things are going to be probably present in Star Citizen. And some of that's also just going to be smart, or being about being smart with when you're buying and selling. So, maybe you are looking and you can tell, okay, the market is really crashing for cobalt. So I'm going to pick up a bunch of cobalt because they're selling for really low. And I have the wherewithal and time to hold off on doing anything with it for a couple weeks until I know cobalt's going to rise back up. So then you've bought low and you're selling high. Those types of decisions are going to be basic economical decisions, but they're going to be things that are going to have a positive impact on you. So yeah, there's going to be those types of things. As far as things like real estate or ship leaser, I think there's probably going to be some level of that's in play, but that's very far down the line to say, yes, I'm really confident that's going to be there. So, that's going to be it for that episode, kind of the special Patreon edition. I'm going to have another one up, picking up where I left off here probably tomorrow. So, if you have questions, get them in. Otherwise, I will talk to you guys later. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend, and take care.